September 18th, 2016. Greene County, Iowa. The rain had stopped just an hour earlier, but the land hadn't. It held on. The kind of thick, clay-heavy soil that didn't just get wet. It swallowed. It clung. It refused to let go. And right there, in the middle of that field, under a low gray sky that still smelled like stormwater and iron, a $500,000 machine was stuck like it had been rooted into the earth itself. The AgriCore Titan X9, the pride of modern farming, sat buried axle-deep in mud. Its tires, taller than a man, were packed solid. Its chrome edges smeared brown. Its engine, still ticking from the last failed attempt, gave off that faint heat shimmer that made the whole machine look like it was breathing. But it wasn't going anywhere. Around it stood a crowd. Farmers, mechanics, locals, who had driven in from miles away after hearing something big had happened. And near the front, boots clean despite the mud, stood Victor Halbrook, CEO of AgriCore, suit jacket off, sleeves rolled jaw tight. "This is impossible," one of the engineers muttered, staring at the data tablet in his hand. "We've calculated the torque. It should have broken free." It didn't. Victor snapped. 3 attempts already. 3 different pulling configurations, 3 failures. And now the murmurs had started. You could hear it in the way people shifted their weight. In the way a few men folded their arms, eyes narrowing. Not loud enough to challenge, not yet, but enough to change the air. Because machines like that weren't supposed to fail. Not in public, not like this. That was when the sound came. A low, uneven engine, coughing more than running. People turned before they even saw it. It came in slow from the edge of the field, bouncing slightly over the uneven ground. Paint chipped down to bare metal, in places one headlight dimmer than the other. An old tractor, no, older than that, worn down to its bones, the kind of machine people didn't restore, they abandoned. And behind the wheel sat a man. Most of them recognized, though few of them had ever really looked at him. Eli Turner. He didn't wave. Just eased the machine forward until it stopped about 20 feet from the stuck Titan. The engine idled low, steady in a way that didn't match its appearance. Someone in the back chuckled. Hell, another voice followed louder. "Now that thing looks like it needs pulling itself." A few laughs broke out. Victor turned, eyes narrowing as he took in the sight. "You lost?" he asked, not even trying to hide the edge in his voice. Eli stepped down from the tractor, boots already caked in old dirt like they belonged there. He glanced once at the Titan, then at the ground around it. Not the machine, the soil. The way it had shifted. The way it held. Then he looked back at Victor. "I can pull it out," he said. There was a pause. Not long. Just long enough for people to process what they'd heard. Then the laughter came. Not quiet this time. Full open, echoing across the wet field. Victor let out a short breath through his nose, almost a laugh himself, but sharper. "You," he said. With that, he gestured openly now, letting everyone look, letting the moment stretch. That thing wouldn't pull a trailer out of a parking lot. More laughter. A younger engineer stepped forward, shaking his head. "Sir," with all due respect, he said. Though there wasn't much respect in it, the ground pressure alone. I mean, it's not even about horsepower. That tractor doesn't have the structural capacity. "I know what it has," Eli said quietly. That only made it worse. Victor stepped closer, now boots, sinking slightly into the mud. "I've got $500,000 sitting in that field," he said. "Designed by the best engineers in this country. Tested in conditions worse than this. And you're telling me that piece of scrap can do what this can't?" Eli didn't answer right away. He just looked at the Titan again, then back at the ground, then finally at Victor. Yes, that was it. No explanation, no defense. Just that one word. Victor laughed then. Actually laughed. "All right," he said, turning slightly, letting the crowd feel it too. "All right, let's make this interesting." Someone in the back pulled out a phone, already recording. Victor pointed toward the stuck machine. "You get 1 try," he said. 1. You fail. He shrugged. You turn around, you leave, and you don't come back out here, pretending you belong in this conversation." The words landed hard. A few people shifted, the tone changing just slightly. But Eli didn't react. "Deal," Victor pressed. Eli nodded once. That should have been the end of it. Just another small moment of a man being put in his place. But there was something no one there understood yet. Not about the machine. Not about the mud. And definitely not about the man who had just climbed back onto that rusted seat. Because this story didn't start in that field. It started decades earlier, in a low wooden shop at the edge of a different piece of land, where the smell of oil and iron never really left your clothes. Eli had grown up there. Not in the house, not really. In the shop. His father, Walter Turner, wasn't the kind of man people wrote about. Didn't own much land. Didn't chase contracts. Didn't care for new things, just because they were new. But if something broke, people came to him. Engines no one else could figure out. Machines written off as dead. Walter didn't just fix them. He understood them. He used to say there was a difference. Anybody can replace parts. He'd tell Eli, wiping his hands on a rag that never got clean. But if you don't know why it broke, you're just buying time. Eli learned to listen before he learned to talk. Learned the sound of strain in an engine, the difference between a machine that was fighting the load and one that was working with it. And one night, when Eli was maybe 12, his father had brought something home on the back of a flatbed. It didn't look like much, even back then. An old chassis, half a transmission, parts mismatched from different models. "Why'd you buy that?" Eli had asked. Walter had smiled a little. "Not big, just enough. They stopped making machines like this," he said. Eli had looked at it again, confused. "Why?" Walter paused. Then he said something Eli wouldn't fully understand until years later. "Not because they couldn't," he said. "Because they didn't want to. That machine, that broken, forgotten thing, became a project that never really ended. Years passed. Seasons changed. Walter got older. The shop got quieter. But that machine stayed. Taken apart, rebuilt, changed. Not to make it faster. Not to make it prettier, but to make it right. What most people didn't know, what no one in that field knew, was that the original design had never been meant for mass production. It was a test, an idea, a machine built not for speed, but for torque. Real torque, the kind that didn't show up on glossy brochures, the kind that didn't matter, until it did. After Walter passed, Eli didn't sell it, didn't scrap it. He kept working on it, year after year, quietly. Changing things no one would notice, keeping things others would have replaced. Because he wasn't building a machine to impress anyone. He was building something that understood the ground he worked on. And out there, in that field of heavy Iowa clay, that mattered more than anything else. Back in the present, Eli reached down and turned the key. The engine came alive with a low, steady rumble. Not loud, not aggressive, but deep, like it wasn't in a hurry. And as the sound settled into the air, something shifted, just slightly, because even the men who had laughed started to realize that didn't sound like scrap. Victor stepped back, slightly folding his arms, watching now not with amusement, but with interest he didn't want to admit. "Go ahead," he said, voice louder, making sure everyone heard. "Show us." But this wasn't just about showing anymore. Word had already started to spread. By the time Eli eased the tractor forward a few feet more, trucks were pulling up along the dirt road. People stepping out, boots hitting mud, voices asking what they'd missed. Phones were out now. Someone had already started a live stream. "What's going on?" "That old thing's gonna try and pull the Titan." "No way." But there was something else happening too. Something quieter. The engineers had stopped laughing. One of them, a man named Carter, crouched low near the Titan's rear axle, eyes moving between Eli's tractor and the ground beneath it. "Wait," he murmured. Victor glanced at him. "What?" Carter didn't answer right away. Because Eli wasn't lining up the way they expected. Not straight, not head-on. Instead, he angled the tractor slightly off-center, positioning it lower along the slope of the mud depression. "That's wrong," another engineer said immediately. "He's losing direct force." Carter shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "He's changing the vector." Victor frowned. "Speak English." But Eli wasn't listening to any of them. He stepped down again, boots sinking slightly as he walked toward the Titan. Not hurried, not hesitant. Just deliberate. He knelt by the mud, ran his fingers across it, pressed down, watched how it shifted. And right there, in a movement so small, most people missed it. He smiled, just slightly, because this wasn't really about the machine. Not yet. There was something about that soil, something about the way it held tension, and more importantly, the way it released it. Back at his tractor, Eli reached behind the seat and pulled out a length of chain, not new, not polished, but heavy, thick links worn smooth in places not from age alone, but from use. Real use. He didn't attach it high like the engineers had done, didn't go for leverage in the obvious way. Instead, he crouched low, fastening it close to the axle, almost dragging against the ground. What's he doing? Someone whispered. He's reducing his own lift point. Another replied. That makes no sense. But there was a pause, because Carter didn't agree, unless, he said quietly. Victor turned again. Unless what? Carter stood slowly now, eyes fixed on Eli. Unless he's not trying to pull it out the way we did. Victor's jaw tightened. What are you talking about? Carter swallowed. He's not fighting the weight, he said. He's breaking the hold. That didn't make sense to most of the people there, but it didn't need to. Not yet, because Eli had already climbed back onto the tractor. And the moment he did, the engine changed. Still low, still steady, but now there was something else in it. A tension, a kind of controlled pressure that didn't spike, didn't roar, just built, like something winding tight. All right, Victor, called out, raising his voice again. Let's see your miracle. The crowd leaned in, phones lifted higher. Even the wind seemed to quiet. Eli placed his hand on the throttle, and for a brief second, he didn't move, because there was something nobody there knew. Not Victor, not the engineers, not even the farmers watching from the back. That tractor, that broken, forgotten machine they'd laughed at, had never been built for speed, never been designed for efficiency. It had been part of a project that never saw the light of day. A prototype, abandoned before it could be understood, because it did one thing, better than anything else. It generated torque, not the kind you brag about, not the kind that looks impressive on paper, but the kind that starts at zero and doesn't let go. The kind that doesn't spike, doesn't slip, just pushes relentlessly. And Eli had spent years learning exactly how to use it. Not against the land, but with it. He eased the throttle forward. The chain tightened. The tractor didn't lurch, didn't jerk. It just leaned into the ground. The tires compressed slightly, spreading the weight, digging in, not spinning, not yet. The Titan didn't move. A second passed, then two. A ripple of laughter started again from the back. Told you, but it didn't last. Because Eli wasn't increasing speed. He was increasing pressure, slowly, carefully, listening. The engine deepened. The sound no longer uneven. Now it was steady, almost calm. And then a sound, not from the engine, from the ground. A soft work. Carter's head snapped up. Wait, another crack, slightly louder. The mud shifted, not outward, downward. Holy, someone whispered. Eli didn't look back, didn't acknowledge it. He just held the throttle, right where it needed to be, because this was the part nobody understood. They had all tried to overpower the mud, tried to rip the Titan free in one motion, but that wasn't how clay worked. Clay didn't lose, it released, and only if you asked it the right way. The chain tightened further, the tractor leaned harder, and suddenly, one of the Titan's massive tires twitched, just slightly. So small most people would have missed it, but not this crowd, not now. The laughter died instantly. Silence spread like a wave. Victor stepped forward without realizing it. What? What was that? He muttered. No one answered, because it happened again. This time clearer. The Titan moved. Not much. Not enough to be called success, but enough to destroy every assumption that had been made that afternoon. Eli eased off the throttle, just slightly, and the movement stopped. Not because it couldn't continue, but because he chose to stop. And that was the moment everything changed, because now everyone understood. This wasn't luck. This wasn't a joke. And whatever was about to happen next was something none of them had ever seen before. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. The wind moved across the field, carrying that faint smell of wet clay and diesel. But the crowd had gone completely still, because now they had seen it. That machine had moved. Victor took another step forward, boots sinking deeper this time. But he didn't seem to notice. That was coincidence, he said, though his voice didn't carry the same confidence anymore. It shifted. That's all. But even as he said it, Eli was already adjusting again. Not rushing, never rushing. He stepped down once more, walking toward the chain, checking the angle, lowering it just a fraction more. His hands were steady, because this wasn't the part where strength mattered. This was the part where patience did. He climbed back onto the tractor. The engine idled calm, like it knew exactly what was coming. And then he moved the throttle again. This time, a little more. The tractor didn't roar. It pressed. The tires sank slightly deeper, then held. The chain stretched tight like a drawn line between two worlds, old and new, quiet and loud understanding and assumption. And then the ground answered. A louder crack this time. Not sharp, deep, like something breaking loose far beneath the surface. Carter stepped backward instinctively. "Oh my God," he whispered, because he saw it now. Not just movement, mechanics. The mud wasn't resisting anymore. It was collapsing, releasing its grip. And Eli wasn't pulling the Titan out. He was dismantling the force holding it in. Victor's eyes locked onto the massive rear wheel of his machine. "Move," he muttered under his breath. And then it did, slowly, almost unwillingly. The Titan shifted, an inch, then another. The sound that followed wasn't from the engine. It was from the earth itself. A wet tearing like suction giving way. The crowd didn't cheer. Not yet. They were too busy trying to understand what they were witnessing, because this wasn't power the way they knew it. This wasn't brute force. It was something else. Something quieter. Something older. Eli held steady. Didn't push harder than needed. Didn't chase the moment. Because he knew something they didn't. If you rush it now, you lose everything. Another slow pull. Another deep release. And then suddenly, the Titan lurched forward. Not violently, but decisively, like it had finally let go of whatever had been holding it down. A gasp moved through the crowd. Phones shook in people's hands. Someone actually stepped back, as if the machine might come at them. Victor stood frozen, his jaw slightly open, because in that moment, he understood. Not fully, not in detail, but enough. Enough to realize he had been wrong. The old tractor kept moving. Slow, relentless, dragging the $500,000 machine out of the mud like it weighed nothing more than a stubborn memory. And when the Titan finally rolled free onto firmer ground, Eli didn't celebrate, didn't raise a hand, didn't even look at the crowd. He simply eased off the throttle. The engine softened, the chain loosened, and just like that, it was over. For a moment there was only silence. No cheers, no laughter, just the sound of the wind again. And then it broke. A web of noise louder than anything that had come before. Shouts, gasps, disbelief pouring out all at once. Did you see that? No way. That's impossible. But Eli was already stepping down, already unhooking the chain, like it was just another job. Victor walked toward him slowly, each step heavier than the last. He stopped a few feet away, looked at the old tractor, then at Eli. How he asked. Just one word, stripped of everything it had been carrying before. Eli wiped his hands on his jeans, looked once at the ground, then back at Victor. "You were pulling against it," he said quietly. "I wasn't." Victor didn't respond, because he didn't know how. And for the first time that day, there was nothing he could say. What happened next was the part nobody forgot. The video spread faster than anyone expected. Within days, it was everywhere. Farming forums, engineering circles, even mainstream news picked it up. They called it different things. A miracle pull, a fluke, a lesson in humility. But the ones who understood, they called it something else. They called it a reminder. Agricorp tried to control the narrative at first, released statements, talked about unexpected ground conditions. But it didn't hold, because the footage didn't lie. People could see it. The hesitation, the failure, and then the difference. Victor Halbrook didn't speak publicly for a while after that, but the consequences came quietly. A major contract in Nebraska pulled. Investors started asking questions, not about the machine, but about the mindset behind it. Overconfidence, assumption, the belief that more money meant more understanding, and somewhere in all of that, the name Eli Turner started showing up. Offers came in for buyout proposals, collectors wanting the tractor, companies wanting to study it, some even offering to rebuild it properly. Eli declined all of them, not rudely, not proudly, just simply because that machine wasn't a product. It wasn't a statement. It was a continuation of something his father had started, something most people would never fully see. He went back to his land, back to his work, the same fields, the same routines. Nothing changed on the surface, but something had shifted. People who used to pass by without stopping now slowed down. Some even pulled over, not to ask for favors, but to ask questions. And sometimes Eli answered, not with speeches, not with explanations, but with small things, a suggestion, a correction, a quiet try it this way. And over time, the story stopped being about the tractor, stopped being about the pull. It became about something else, something deeper, because what happened that day in Greene County wasn't just about a machine being stronger than another. It was about understanding, about knowing the difference between fighting something and working with it. Because the truth is, most people laughed that day, not because the tractor looked weak, but because they didn't understand what they were looking at. And that's how it always starts. We dismiss what we don't recognize. We judge what doesn't fit our expectations. We measure value by what's visible, by what's expensive, by what makes noise. But some of the strongest things don't look like strength at all. Some of the smartest people don't speak unless they have to. And some of the most powerful tools are the ones built quietly, over time, by hands that cared more about understanding than being seen. Because sometimes, the quietest man in the field is the one who knows exactly how deep the ground goes,